Hi, it's Maija here, and today I'm going to be wrapping up and giving you mini reviews of books 11 to 15 that I've read this year. So this is the start of my February. And as always, I will leave timestamps in the description, so if you want to skip to a particular book, you can do so. In this video, I'm going to talk about one novel, one novella, and 3 comics. So first the novella, and this is All Systems Read by Martha Wells, and this is a science fiction novella told by Murderbot, as it calls itself, which is a self-aware security unit android who is accompanying these humans on its mission, and it doesn't really care about the mission, it just wants to watch TV basically. So that premise was definitely what caught my interest, the idea that there was this security unit that had gained self-awareness and just could not be bothered. I loved following the story from this perspective of an antisocial, sarcastic and anxious robot, but I didn't really care about the human characters or even the plot that much. I just really enjoyed following the protagonist, and I will be definitely continuing on with this novella series and seeing what adventures Murderbot gets to next. I gave this one 4 stars. The novel that I read was Maggie Stiefvater's The Raven Boys, and this I have owned like for ages. I don't know when the second book came out or something like that. I bought this and now I finally read it, and this of course the first book in a series. This is a young adult modern fantasy series, and it follows Blue, who is this non-magical girl in this magical fortune-telling family, but she has the power to emphasize other people's magical powers. And then there's also this group of Raven Boys, who are boys that attend the local private school, and Blue gets caught up in their quest to find this sleeping king. This book very much is focused on character relationships, which I enjoyed, and I also really liked the spooky atmosphere of it. I was of 2 minds about the writing style, because at times it felt beautifully written and dark and atmospheric, but sometimes it just felt too heavily written. And I've also heard about the Welsh history and mythology that it might not be very accurate. For some reason I felt very restless while reading this. I couldn't concentrate on it for long amounts of time. I don't know if it was my mood at the time or if it was the book. But I think I will continue on with the series at some point. I gave this one 3.5 stars. Now we're moving on to the comics, and the first I read was a manga, The Ancient Magus's Pride Volume 1 by Kora Yamasaki, and I was drawn to this fantasy manga because of the visuals, the aesthetic of it. I like that the male lead has this horned skull for a head, and I really was drawn to these vibrantly colored covers that this series has. Sadly, I wasn't captivated by the story, and I didn't really create any feelings towards any of the characters. This tells about Chise, who is this young girl who is sold at an auction, and she's bought by Elias, who is this mage, and he says that he will make her his apprentice, but then he also repeatedly alludes to making her his bride. Yikes. So first of all, how old is the main character? I was guessing somewhere around 20, but then she was patronized so often by different characters. They were ruffling her hair, etc. And then I sort of dropped it down to 19, because then she would still be a teen, but the bride thing wouldn't be so very creepy, although still very creepy. But then I found out that official guidebook says that she is 16. What? So I hated that whole bride running joke thing or whatever it was that is also in the title. He bought her at an auction. She has no place to go. So what did I like about this? I like that there were 2 kinds of magic users. There were mages and alchemists were the main ones, and their powers worked differently. And I also liked the skullhead. Not continuing on with the series, I gave this one 2 stars. Then I finished the comics anthology The Sleep of Reason, an anthology of horror, which was edited by Spike C. Trotman, and I have been reading this anthology for a long amount of time, like for a year or something. I've read one story here, one story there, whenever I remember that I had this. So this is an anthology of horror short stories from different creators, and I got this at a humble bundle. I think it was originally kickstarted, and I got it in a bundle of indie books and indie comics. There were like 2 or so comics in this anthology that I liked. There was a lot of gross out and body horror stuff, which I don't really enjoy, and in the end I think I only remember one or two comics vaguely, so they didn't really stick in my mind, and I gave this one 1.5 stars. And finally, I read the second volume of Giant Days by John Allison, Lisa Treyman, and Max Sarin, and this is another comic that I got from a Humble Bundle. It was a Boom Comics Humble Bundle. I had read the first volume, and if you can remember, I didn't really enjoy it, so I wasn't planning on continuing on with the series, but since I got it in a Humble Bundle, I went ahead and read it. So this continues the story of the lives of three girls, Susan, Esther, and Daisy, and their life in university in UK and their everyday escapades, and that subject matter doesn't really work for me. I do like the art though, both the original artist Lisa Treyman and her replacement Max Sarin, who is a Finnish artist as it happens, so Finns represent. I gave this one 3 stars. The third star is mainly for the art, but I can also see the craftsmanship in the story and the characters, even though they aren't for me. So that was everything that I read during the first half of February. Let me know how you felt about these books if you have read them, and I will talk to you in my next video.